Okay. Here we go. So I'm going to the WashingtonPost.com. I'm going to have a couple windows up. What's up, Mom? What's up, Le Raposo? How you guys doing? Matt, Chris, Stepharoo. What's up, bro? What's up, Kamale? Okay, so it's getting nuts, I guess, over here. I just get off work. I don't know. I'm just expecting to have a typical day. I mean, I heard rumors of stuff. I come home, and all of a sudden, there's crazy stuff on the TV. What's up, Candy Girl? What's up, Monica? I'm glad I'm on too. All right, I'm trying to watch. You guys know what's going on? Have you guys been keeping? Have you guys been paying attention? So basically, I decided I wanted to come on here just because I heard it's popping off in Washington, D.C. And I wanted to get kind of a perspective on, from a police officer's perspective. I know I got a lot of people that follow me that maybe are policemen. You'll know what I'm talking about. But from a police officer's perspective, which I think is really valid here, there's a lot going on, and more than what it looks like. If there's one thing I can say from my perspective is that you cannot trust video. You cannot trust photos. I know people say seeing is believing, and don't believe everything that you read and believe nothing of what you hear and only half of what you see. That's true with video and pictures as well. And it looks crazy right now. But all of a sudden, my Facebook feed's going off. You got people talking stuff about, you got people from the right that are saying things like, this is what you get when you take away democracy. You got people on the left saying, hey, what happened? How come these white people aren't being shot? This is white privilege. It's like crazy right now. It's like fireworks all over again, but on your feed. I know you guys feel what I'm saying. Okay, sorry, I fell behind. What's up, Candy Girl? What's up, Manny? Lily Philippon. PTL, baby. Crazy is putting it lightly, yes. It's nuts. I hear they shut down tons of independent, I'm guessing that means media. Dang, bunch of people. What's up, Shelby? Okay. Let's see here. Aloha from Hilo. What's up, everybody? Okay, I got people coming on YouTube and on Instagram. So this is what this is for those of you who are logging on. I don't really know what's happening. So you're finding out with me. I know many of you probably already know what's going on. You're going to find out live with me. All I know is it's popping off at the Capitol building. That's all I know. So I had heard that there was like a rally, some type of a Trump rally or something at the Capitol building because of the obvious reasons. Congress was meeting and they're going to certify everything and all that good stuff. And I had heard like rumors that this was, the moment where everything was going to change. It was either going to be overturned or there was going to be some type of a revolution and all that good stuff. And then sure enough, I start getting updates on my phone. It's blowing up, saying things like there was a shooting and this woman had died and Trump was calling for peace. And then all of a sudden I start getting notifications because my wife had commented on Facebook about something and a bunch of people were posting crazy stuff. And if you don't know me, I have friends on both sides of the aisle. I have friends that are super liberal. I have friends that are super conservative. And so we have like my Facebook feed is like crazy, right? And it's just like fireworks. So I'm like, you know what? As I learn what's going on, I want to be able to talk to people about what's happening and hear what everybody has to say. I will say this. I don't want, listen, I know this is going crazy right now, but I'm not looking for hate. I'm not looking for people to fight over this. There's enough fighting going on right now. It's funny because as soon as I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go do a live. She's like, let's see how fast you can destroy your YouTube channel. And that's how it feels sometimes to talk about this stuff. You feel like you're going to just destroy your like online reputation or whatever. But there's one thing I can assure you. There's dummies on both sides. Oh, I don't know what happened here. Sorry for those of you on Instagram. Something just happened. I don't know how that happened. So it says, okay. Please do not have your emotion control you. I feel you on that one. Okay, so I'm going to go through both CNN. I'm going to go through Fox. I'm going to go through the Times. I'm going to try to get NPR. You know what I mean? I want to just see what everybody's saying. First of all, the biggest problem is obviously somebody's died already, which is sad. We don't want anybody to die here. I don't know what is going on. But I do know that it looks like people, if you guys want to log on with me, anybody have their TV on or whatever, you want to log on to WashingtonPost.com. I'm going to start there because they're doing a live report. I guess that woman who died, I saw the photos or the videos online. For those of you in Hawaii, I saw it on Hawaii Viral. And I saw that short clip of that chick getting shot in the neck or whatever. She died. I knew that was going to happen. You could see that wound. That's a brutal shot to take to the neck. It looks like what the Washington Post is saying is that it was Trump supporters. The demonstration turned violent and that everybody basically mobbed the Capitol building. I know I'm seeing a lot of people are blaming Trump for calling for it. The biggest comments I'm seeing are like white privilege comments, why these people weren't shot. I'm seeing a lot of excuses for what's happening. A lot of people saying this is what you get when you take away people's democratic process. I guess those are the two biggest camps, if that's what you guys are hearing. That's what I'm hearing. Wow. Manny Kona said somebody's make already. I know. At least I heard two, but I know that one chick, she died. But I guess I know that several police officers have been hurt. And that's really sad. So from my perspective, let's just take this at face value without getting too deep into it, because I'll get there as I go through this, but I don't want this to be boring. From this standpoint right now, it looks as if, because some people are saying that Antifa came through and they're posting like calls for arms and Antifa coming through and putting MAGA hats on and all that stuff. We heard that for the BLM rallies as well. So first of all, I can assure you, from my perspective, I promise you Antifa is definitely involved. Now, to say that they're the only ones doing this, that's not fair. We don't really know that yet. How do I know that? Because every rally or protest that I ever worked as a police officer, we had protesters who came out to those rallies or those protests who were not involved with that actual cause, but they lended their services to give the appearance of solidarity so that there would be more people. During all my riot training, they teach us that There are professional protesters who will lend bodies and lend support and make signs and everything and come out to help support if they will return someone else's time. It's like a unionized protest, right? It's like a union of groups getting together to protest. So I do know that that's real. But to say that those are the only people doing it would be unfair. We don't know that yet. I would not doubt that there are some people that radicalized and really feel like this whole thing is getting out of hand and that their freedoms are being taken from them, and so they're going to the Capitol building. I will say this, it seems misguided. I don't know, what do you get from that? What do you expect to happen by doing that, by what happened today, by rushing the Capitol building? Like, I saw dudes take, see the pictures of dudes sitting back in Pelosi's chair with like a note to her, and there's rumors that they found emails of her saying that revolution has begun and all this other stuff. If it's just like, let's say from the perspective of you wanting to start a revolution, let's say that people wanted to start a revolution because they feel like they can connect with the patriots from the Revolutionary War. Let's say that's what they feel. Let's just try to get it in perspective. I'm going to go to both sides of the both perspectives here, so stay with me. Let's say from the conservative perspective that their rights are being taken from them, that this election was rigged. If that's your perspective, what was this attempt? What was this going to do? Like, what was the goal here? This may just be the beginning, but as of now, it seems kind of like a dud. There are obviously still people in the streets. There's officers doing crowd control. God bless them. And, prayers go out to them. I pray that nobody else gets hurt. I don't want anybody else hurt. But what was the goal here? Right? Because DC shut down the streets. There's a curfew now. If your perspective is from the other side, let's say your perspective is, hey, this was a legit election and you guys are just salty, then like, what is the end game here? Let's say you were going there just for a Trump rally. You just wanted to show support and solidarity, which I've seen photos, seen video, live video, all that stuff from dudes that are out there being peaceful. They're saying, yo, we're not trying to, start any violence or whatever. We're just here for support, right? What is the end game is my big thing. Like, what do we do here? Let's say now, let's just take this all the way. Let's take this to the extreme. It's the only way I feel like we can test these perspectives. I don't think that anybody who feels like they're being wronged and wants to protest and wants change in the world is crazy or are murderers. Like, I don't assign that moral virtue to them based on their political positions. I just don't think that that's okay to do, because I know wonderful people who are Trump supporters and I know wonderful people who are Biden supporters. And let's be honest, like, who cares who the candidate is? It comes down to left and right. If people support the left, I don't think that they are, let's say, pro-abortion, big government, and, high taxes. And I don't look, likewise, if someone on the left should look at someone on the right and just be like, hey, this person wants to take away the rights of women. This person doesn't care about black people. This person, wants to destroy the middle class. Like, you can't assign that identity to them, because that's not everybody's on that, coming from that same platform. That's why my political position always gets so much hate. My biggest videos were on the BLM stuff, and on that one Chipotle incident with the Second Amendment issue, with that girl pulling the gun out on that family. Those got the biggest responses and the most hate from both sides. There was almost zero support on those videos. Like, the dislikes were huge, and it was either people saying, you know, that what was that girl supposed to do? She felt threatened and she couldn't go anywhere. She should have pulled out her gun. And then you have people on the other side saying that the white lady needed to go to jail for pulling her gun and blah 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 blah. Literally everybody was hating. The people that were in support of Julian Wustenberg hated on me because I was critical of her. People that were supporting the black family that had the gun put on them, they were hating on me because I was saying they shouldn't have been acting like fools. So it was like, oh, so much hate. I can't understand why it's so polarizing. It's amazing how polarizing it is, and it gets the least amount of support. I don't know. I think if you look at the websites and the YouTube channels that do the most, I just saw one today that went from nothing, and in a month got monetized and had thousands of subscribers, but it was a super extreme viewpoint and a super extreme conservative viewpoint, and the channel's blowing up. And to me, they were too extreme about the things that they were saying. And if you look, that seems to be the case. Like, the algorithm works if you're like super extreme left or super extreme right. And I'm trying not to feed into that. I really don't believe that that's the truth. I don't believe that's how you should be. I don't believe in tribalism and just like committing to an idea and not being willing to question it. This way, when you pick an idea, you can actually know why you believe it. You're not swayed by other people's criticism or whatever. Tater Monkey, we forget we are all human and we are all unique. I don't agree with violence, but I understand why they're doing what they're doing. No one is listening to us. See, Tater Monkey, here's the thing. I hear you. But that's also what the BLM rallies were saying. So, like, one thing I've been noticing lately is people that I know are anti-BLM, which I actually think that the Black Lives Matter organization is a bad organization. I am not for the Black Lives Matter organization at all. I recently couldn't understand why some of my friends were so pro-BLM. And I sat down and talked with some of them. And actually a really good friend of mine that we go way back. And he had no idea. He really didn't. The things that I had told him from my perspective about BLM, he had never even heard before. He dismissed in his head what the Black Lives Matter organization was and was going off of the premise that Black Lives Matter, which of course they do. So when I was telling him, yeah, but Black Lives Matter is a phrase that was hijacked by a group that I don't agree with, and here's why. He was like, yeah, but no one I know thinks about that when they hear BLM. They just think Black Lives Matter, which of course they do. And so I was shocked because I was like, dude, you don't tell me you don't know what Black Lives Matter, the organization, is about. And that Black lives are a very small part of the Black Lives organization, Black Lives Matter organization. And he had never heard that. And I was shocked. And what it made me realize was that there are a large amount of people that don't understand the things that I've seen. And so I was like, whoa, maybe there's some things that I don't understand about what they're saying. And that was a hard pill to swallow because I'm so anti-Black Lives Matter organization. That I was like, people are using the excuse that Black Lives Matter, like they hijacked the statement. It's like saying Jesus loves you. Like if I started a terrorist organization and called it Jesus loves you and then walked around telling people, what, Jesus doesn't love you? Like, you can't argue with Jesus loves you. I'm like, yeah, but that's not what that means. Of course Jesus loves you, but you have a terrorist organization called Jesus loves you. Like that was when I went into that conversation with him. And man, like it was great for me to see that he really had no idea. And so this is the same, I can apply that the same logic to this, what's happening right now in Washington, D.C. The reason why is I think that we got to make sure we weren't the people. Like, this is an introspective moment. Make sure you're not the person that was critical of BLM's revolutionary mindset in burning cities and rioting because their voice wasn't being heard. But then when this happens, you're pro-revolution. Because I've literally heard the same people say, this is what happens when a people feel like their democratic process has been taken from them. It's like, yeah, but just remove democratic process has been taken from them and just apply that to what BLM was saying, which is this is what happens to a people that you've oppressed and they feel like they're not being heard. Right? That's the same logic. And you can't be anti-one and pro the other. It doesn't work that way. You either are pro law and order, or you're like, you know what? I'm pro law and order up until a point, and then you overthrow the system. And now now we're in a tough spot, right? So we're in a tough spot because at what point do you do a revolution? Right? At what point is it appropriate? At what point do you say the revolutionaries in 1776, they were peaceful until they weren't? Tater Monkey, I am pro law and order, but have seen how corrupt they can be. Yeah, true that, right? We've all seen corruption now. Everyone matters. If white can't accept blacks, too bad. They ain't perfect themselves. They shouldn't use God or Jesus' name in vain. Here in Hawaii, we accept all race. Straight up, Miley Cummings. That's the truth. That's why, Miley, it was so hard for me to come from Hawaii, where that didn't exist. Like, that wasn't a thing for me. And then to move to a place like Detroit, which is literally one of the most segregated communities in America. And everyone was complaining about racism. And I didn't see it. For the last decade of my life, I haven't seen racism in the way that it's being portrayed. And then I come here and I had no sympathy for people that were claiming racism. And then I just really had, as tough as it is to accept, it's like, listen, I don't live in communities that other people live in, right? So I don't know. Their perspective is valid. It's their perspective. It literally is their perspective. I can't tell them how not to feel. We could talk about those feelings and find out where it comes from. I think it's just as wrong to say that there's no racism, there's no systemic racism, as is to say that there is systemic racism if you haven't experienced it yourself. So the person who's saying there's no systemic racism because they've never experienced it is in the same boat as someone who's saying there is systemic racism because I've experienced it. Now, one of them is probably wrong, or maybe they're both wrong in different scenarios, but you got to understand there are different communities. And so when in Hawaii, it's such a melting pot of people, and it's just like a different world. And then I have to at least accept the fact that that's a possibility. So I'm saying all that to say that we have to understand that our perspective is just that. It's like, it's what we perceive. It's what we see with our eyes. So I'm taking that as, that's kind of the launch pad that I'm launching this from. So I don't want to assign any moral virtue to the people that I'm seeing doing these things, because I know that there are people in this rally, and then I know there are people in the riot side of it who think they're doing good, just like there are people in the BLM riots that thought they were doing good. So I just think that's important. And it's just not a popular thing to say. It just isn't. Let me see. Waka. Okay, so I'm going to turn this up. So it looks like there's still like a huge group of people. The mob has been cleared of the Capitol, and Congress is resuming certifying the election results. So at least they've gotten control. My heart goes out to those cops, man, because they're in a tough spot. I get a lot of people that are always saying, you know, the cops that are out there that are protecting the rioters are doing wrong. But that's not true. Like, they're there for law and order. And you got to understand, the beat cop on patrol, the dude on the ground, the dude whose boots on the ground wearing all that gear, you think he's having fun right now? Like, he don't know what to think. He's just trying to keep the peace. I have been there. I have been there where I'm at a BLM march in Honolulu where you got BLM who are chanting about cops being corrupt and F the police and all that good stuff. And then I've had people wanting to fight them because they felt like, hey, what are you coming to the islands for? This isn't our problem. And I'm literally protecting the protesters that are anti-police, and I'm also protecting the people who are getting in the faces of the protesters because it was going to scrap. I don't know. Does anybody remember the 2017, 2016, the Christmas parade, the holiday, what is it called? Honolulu Lights, the Honolulu Light Festival. Do you guys remember when, I believe it was BLM staged a lie-in in the middle of the street? Do you remember they laid down in the middle of the street during the protest or during the Honolulu Lights? It's like the Christmas parade for Oahu. So if you live on Oahu, chances are you go to the Honolulu Lights every year. You drive from Waianae, you drive from Makaha, you're driving from Waimanalo, and you come there, you bring the family, and you stand in front of the Shaka Santa and the marching bands from your high school, and Santa comes through, and everyone's throwing candy and whatever. Well, that year, BLM decided to lay down and stop the parade. The problem is, local boys who brought their families, who like got off work and hustled and drove all the way home. They work Hawaii Kai. They drove all the way to Waianae, got the family, and then drove all the way 2 hours into town, found parking spot, and just want to watch the parade. But then people laid down in the streets. Well, all of a sudden we get a call on the radio. It's like, yo, we got, a big melee in front of Honolulu Hale. We rushed down there because I was on the bike unit, and we always work the parades. And we get there, and there's this group of people that were protesting. Well, we had to form like a circle around them, and we had to help them because they were being jumped. Like, it was getting a mob because the local people were like, yo, I drove 2 hours with my family to see this. It only happens one time a year. And you're disrupting this parade. So basically, we had to put a circle around them, isolate them, and protect them, and walk them to the parking lot so they could get in their cars, because then it became dangerous. From a police officer's perspective, that was messed up, because in my head, I'm like, dude, what am I here to do? Like, I'm protecting people who are essentially ruining the event, right? But they have a right. We're essentially ruining the event, right? But they have a right to protest. But then other people have a right to watch the show. So it's all crazy. So from a cops perspective, like, these officers are just trying to keep the peace. So on one end, you got people that want their message heard, but things still have to move forward. You still got processes that need to happen. So it's crazy to see these dudes like in their riot gear. They're just normal dudes like you and I, who got families at home or whatever, who got called in for this event, and they just don't want anybody getting hurt. And they don't want to get hurt. And this will stay peaceful until rocks start flying. Like, As long as that doesn't happen, we'll be good. People are going to get arrested. People are going to go to jail tonight. Some people are going to get hurt. Like, a lot of people get trampled during these kind of events. But as long as the weapons stay down, as long as there's no bricks and people are throwing sticks and Molotov cocktails or whatever, this thing should stay peaceful for the rest of the night. I hope for these cops. I mean, because they're really caught up. Like, they don't have a choice. You know what I mean? Sorry, I went off on a kind of a tangent there, and I had tons of comments. So I'm hoping I'm trying to make sure you guys are hearing, or everybody's hearing what you got to say. So Honolulu HNLXSNK says there is systemic racism and culturalism that's been injected after years of brewing in oil and water mixtures. In the end, though, don't say racism or culturalism, it's favoritism. I think it's probably tribalism. I think personally, I think that you can boil it all down to tribalism. I think that people, for the most part, they like, it is kind of like water and oil. I mean, it's a really great thing to say. I think that people, they kind of are drawn to their own kind, which is a perception, right? Because we're all human, but they're drawn to people that look like them or understand their culture. That's why you have Chinatowns. That's why you have Koreatowns, right? I think that it gets dangerous when you are not aware of other cultures. I think that the bottom line is we need to be used to other cultures. We need to connect with other cultures. Our children need to be aware of other cultures. They need to be cultured. I think being cultured is like a fail-safe for unity. That's why people in Hawaii are, for the most part, from my perspective, from my experiences, generally more cultured than people in the Midwest as a whole, unless they live in like a big city like downtown Chicago or New York City or big metropolises that are multicultural. And there's pockets in Detroit, in these new areas in Detroit, where you see a lot of multiculturalism because you're not afraid. And the less fear you have towards other cultures, the more you hang out with them. Like, the more dinners you can have with other cultures, man, we would have a lot less problems in this world if we just understood people. What's up, DJ? Love you, bro. So I think that, sorry, I'm dropping behind on the YouTube. Scott F. Yeah, bro, that's a mullet. Monica said, I think protesters are done not being heard. Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, that's what happened with the BLM stuff, right? I mean, I think at a certain point, like, that's what happens. Protesters get fed up. That doesn't excuse what they're doing. Yo, if people start throwing rocks, like, I don't know, did you guys see that story? Somebody posted a story about how there's, like, bricks and rocks and like, building materials getting dropped off in Washington, D.C. I don't know if that's true or not. Like, we saw that with the BLM riots, too. I don't know how true that is, or if it's just, like, people... Literally, there's a construction site or whatever. But once the rocks start getting thrown, once gunshots start happening, I'm out. Like, even if you want a revolution, let's say there's people that want the revolution, that think this is it. You violated our rights. You are the British. You're the redcoats. And we're the Americans, right? Even if that's your perspective, there is ways to do a revolution. And those ways were exhausted in 1776. Tater Monkey said, we got to at least have a plan. This isn't a plan. That's what I'm saying. No matter what your purpose is, there's got to be a plan. So all I'm saying is, for now, I don't think everybody should get all crazy. People that are watching this that don't live in Washington, D.C., you don't know what's happening yet. But it is pandemonium. It's crazy out there. There are people who obviously broke into the Capitol building and all the good stuff. I wonder why that chick got shot. Like, I don't know, was it a police shooting? I don't know, does anybody know? Or was that just like a friendly fire? You know what I mean? That would change some things. What's up, DJ? Thanks for coming through, baby. Love that dude. Everybody go follow DJ's the name. Incredible artist. He makes bomb music. So what's next? Monica said. So next, here's the deal. We have a democratic process that needs to happen. Listen, I know there's a lot of Trump supporters out there who, listen, I'm a conservative. Like politically, I'm a conservative. I'm a social conservative. I'm a fiscal conservative. That's what I am. But from a, like, if you're going to start a revolution, there's got to be some type of a master plan. You got to have like order. Exhaust the things with peace first. A lot of people say, well, we tried to do that since November, since the elections. That wasn't enough time, let's be honest. So if you're coming from that side of it, yo, give it, like actually work this process before people get hurt. You know what I mean? It took 5 years in 1776. You know what I mean? Take those 5 years. If you really want a revolution, then take the 5 years. It's put in the work. Organize. You know how the Hawaiian sovereignty movement, right? Every once in a while, someone will storm Iolani Palace and take it over. I mean, we see that usually like every year or so. The reason why that doesn't really do anything is because they're not organized. Like people can't agree. If the 50 Hawaiian sovereignty groups could get together and come up with an organized plan and work it out, which there's actually been a lot of progress in that area, then they would make more progress. I've been seeing a lot lately, of course. But man, if you're going to do something, like, let's make it worth it. Because that dude that you're standing next to that wants a revolution with you, you don't want him to die. That chick that got shot today, she could have been the chick that was sitting next to the dude who wants revolution. And she did too. And he's like, we can do this together, sis. And then she goes and gets shot and dies. And the revolution doesn't happen. She died for nothing. Like, you got to think big picture here. And from an officer's perspective, like, yo, they're kind of caught in the middle, right? Because they're called to serve and protect. And they want to honor the Constitution. Like, they're here to support the Constitution of the United States. So what happens when their government, when they feel their government is not following the Constitution? Who is their enemy? Where is that stop? You know what I mean? It's tough for a police officer. It is. What, like these COVID, like the COVID laws? There are a lot of cops out there that feel like you shouldn't be enforcing COVID laws. That's not your job. And so there's a lot of cops that tell other cops, yo, if you're arresting people for COVID violations, you're not a cop. That's a cop out. But then you have cops. I know cops in Hawaii that are on both sides of the fence. I know cops in Hawaii that are like, yo, these are COVID rules, and we're trying to protect the community, so they are writing citations and arresting people for violating, the stay-at-home orders. And I know other cops are like, bro, I'm not doing that. That ain't right. And is that allowed? Like, is that what you guys want? Is that how it's supposed to be for a police officer? Are you, do you encourage the police officers to think for themselves? Or do you want them just to follow the law of their chain of command? Or is it both? Is it, you have to follow chain of command because that's how order is kept? But then at a certain point, when your superiors violate the Constitution, does the Constitution then take precedent for a local police officer? Right? I mean, think about that. Think about the spot you're putting people in. What's up, Ms. Honu? Thanks for coming on. Now, did you switch names or profiles? DJ, my dude, the world is so different. I know, dude. I think that here, Here's the perspective. Here's where I'm coming from, right? Because I got friends on both sides. And it's tough to be independent. It's tough to think the way you think and not succumb to pressure of the people around you. I got people that I love dearly with all my heart who I completely disagree with. And it sucks, man. It's hard to do. It's hard to listen to someone that you love say things that you disagree with. I don't care who you are. It's definitely hard. Like, you can't please everybody. And anytime someone believes differently than you, there's this little thing inside you that makes you feel like, man, they're wrong, or they think I'm wrong. And that feels personal. That feels like an attack. When you have people that think differently than you and are like, anybody who thinks that way is stupid, it feels like an attack on you. But you feel the same way about them. But if we just take a step back and we're like, bro, I know this dude. He's not an idiot. That's just his conviction. He may be wrong, you may be right, or you may be wrong, he may be right, but whatever. Like, it is what it is. That's the perspective. So I just don't want everybody hating on each other because, and the thing is, this doesn't get views. Like, this isn't a popular thing to say because this isn't like provocative. This is boring. That's a boring perspective to have. Balance is boring. Let's be honest. There's nothing exciting about having a balanced perspective. That's why nobody watches balanced perspective news. That's why there's right news and left news. Dang, it looks like a lot of cops. So how's it going in Hawaii? As soon as you go for the throat, we're going to dance. Can they go back? We saw it carrying out chairs in the Capitol. Sorry, wrong hand. Pallets of brick. We got to have at least a plan. Isn't this a plan? I stay Maui. As long as no one come to me and mine or my property, we good. A lot of people feel that way. Machinist 47. Yeah, I saw that. I saw the clip, but I didn't see if it was a cop who shot her or what. Do you know what she was doing? Like, I know from the perspective of being on the police officer's side of that line. For the most part, they would tell us, the command center would tell us, bro, don't engage unless you absolutely have to. People could even be breaking laws. Like, people break laws constantly during the protest. And normally, as a police officer, you're called to enforce those laws. So you see violations. To be fair, you have to enforce the rules because you don't want someone to say later that you enforce the rules on someone and not somebody else. So typically, on the street, if you see a violation in front of you, you're going to get in trouble for it, cited or arrested or whatever. It has to be addressed by the officer. That's why many of you who've been ticketed or arrested, I'm sure you've heard, Salinas 808, what's up? What's up, girl? Thanks for coming through. And many of you have heard the officer say to you, you did it right in front of me. You left me no choice. Well, that's real. Like, there's a lot of things officers know you are doing, like fireworks, that they maybe don't care about. I know that's a hot button topic. I know people are going to hate for that one, but bro, there's a lot of people, officers don't care about your fireworks, but they don't want anybody to get hurt, get dummies that blow themselves up. And so the thing is, if a cop pulls up and you light a firework in front of them and you get cited, it sucks for both of you because most of the time cops are like, come on, dude, I didn't want to do that, but you did it in front of me. If someone had video of me watching you do it and I didn't cite you and they got cited, then they're going to file a complaint. Well, for the most part, during these riots or during these protests, we're told by command, don't enforce unless you absolutely have to. We're trying to keep the peace. And they know during those riots or protests, You don't want to inflame the situation. So I think a lot of times when you have volatile situations with tons of people, when command tells us, dude, don't be arresting anybody, because you know how that's going to look. First of all, you're agitated already. You just want to keep the peace. So yeah, some people do something stupid. They let off a firework, or they're shouting crazy stuff, or they're blocking the street, right? Instead of going in and arresting that dude, getting an arrest team together and going into that group and grabbing that dude and extracting him, then you just let him go. It's, you know what I mean? You got to pick your battles. There's bigger fish to fry. And a lot of times officers got to let that go. And in this case, I know this was happening. Officers are trying not to arrest people. Because, dude, they already hate you right now. They feel like the officers are a part of what's going on. But I was one. I never had like a mayor or a city councilman like whisper in my ear about what the real strategy was about what was going down. That doesn't happen. It wasn't like a conspiracy. On a patrol level, that don't happen. Like, you can't even call it a conspiracy on a patrol level, because they're so low. When you can get to conspiracy levels, when you talk about the higher ups, and at that point, you got to understand, patrol is so disconnected. Just dose the fire with a law. True that. And that's what Hawaii does for the most part. That's why you see people scrap and then hug and make up and still fill out a 252. That's a complainant statement. I've seen dudes fight in Hawaii. One dude knocked the other dude's teeth out, and then afterwards they hugged and cried because they were brothers. But they said sorry, but the dude's like, I still want to prosecute, and he sent him to jail. Like, they fought, hugged to make up, but he still prosecuted because he's like, that was wrong, you shouldn't hit me. That made my brain spin a little bit, because I thought they made up. If they made up, why are you sending your brother to jail? But whatever. So in Hawaii, like, everything can be squashed by just one uncle coming through and telling everybody chill out. And everybody hugs and says sorry or whatever. Or a scrap, like, deflates the situation. Yvette Swizzle, look at Mauna Kea. Yeah, dude had no teeth. What do you mean by Mauna Kea, Yvette? I really want to hear what you got to say about that. H. Cabral right there. That's my boy H. Just joined. What's up, H? Everybody go follow. He's got an awesome organization called End Prejudice. He's a good homie. I actually talked about him earlier. That's a solid dude trying to make the world a better place. Good friend of mine. So, as of right now, it looks like things are under control. Unless you guys are hearing something different. It's kind of crazy, though, to think about. The Electoral College is still going through. There's like rioters outside, which is pretty gangster that they're going to push through like that. Sorry, I'm trying to get to everybody. They're saying there was homemade bombs that were found by the headquarters of the Democratic and Republican. Wow. They found metal pipes with sealed metal end caps with wires coming out. Wow. With white timers on them. I don't know if you guys saw that, but right now they just announced that there were devices found that look like pipe bombs. Wow. And they detonated them in controlled detonations. They're not sure if they're real bombs or if they just look like them. But that's a trip. That ain't right. See, that's messed up. Now, I really do wonder from my perspective, like in Honolulu, the amount of protesters that were up to no good was incredibly low. Let's say there's 500 people at the protest that I was working, there would probably be 50, maybe 10% of them were just people that were there to incite violence or chaos. And I remember, you know what's crazy is I remember there's like a protest season in Honolulu where the protests just start happening. Boom, 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 boom. And they're all really close to each other. They could be Kahala. We did a lot in Alamoana Beach Park, Waikiki. There was a lot on King Street. We did Kaimuki. And I would see the same dudes at those protests. So one would be like a women's rights protest. And then I'd see the same couple dozen people, even though there'd be 500 people there, but a couple dozen of them, the same people at all these same events, but protesting for different causes. A lot of times, those people literally were just brought in. And I would talk to them. I would try to talk to them. I'd be like, yo, I saw you at the animal rights protest or whatever. And so typically there's a lot of people that just like protesting because they feel like that's their civic duty. And then there's a lot of people that are lending their support or their protest services to whatever that cause is, hoping that in return they'll get those same organizers to bring their people out. I remember seeing a chick open her trunk and pull out a bunch of like posters to hand them out to people during the event. And there was old posters in the trunk from the last event that had nothing to do with this cause. There's got to be some of that here, right? You know, there's people in this protest that aren't there for the electoral college votes. They're just looking for trouble. I wonder what do you guys think? What's the percentage of people that are here that had good intentions? I'm interested in what you got to say. Like, what do you think? The people that are at the rally, what percentage of them have good intentions? And by good intentions, I mean they just wanted to show support and solidarity. Not they thought that the revolution was needed, and so they're coming out there to start the revolution. I mean, we'll get to them. Selena says none. A lot of people think that. I think that there's probably, Monica said 95, and Selena's 808 said none. That just goes to show you like the swing. I bet you the majority of the people, 50% plus, are there for good intentions. MR says not many. I'm glad I'm hearing what you guys got to say. Because in my head, it's hard to like wrap my brain around that. Which I'm sure it's hard for you to wrap your brain around the fact that I think that there's a lot of people that have good intentions. Disabs 808 says about 80%. And then Selena said, but making trouble while doing so. Yeah, that's the other thing. You can have good intentions, right? What's that saying? The road to hell is paved with good intentions. There's that too. Machinist 47. What's scary is that there were some Antifa mixed in the crowd. They were involved with the Proud Boys when they stormed the building. So protesters in general had lost it. They were getting along up there peacefully even after the first arrest of Kapuna. Oh, Yvette. Yeah. Right? Yo, you got to give it to them. We've all seen the video. You know, they share all the videos. Like, remember the one video of the sheriff in Flint, Michigan, who got down on a knee and said, I'm here to protest with you. And he walked with those protesters, the BLM protest. People freaked out about that. And they were like, yo, this is what it needs to be. And the first thing I thought of was Mauna Kea. I was like, this ain't new. This is how we're supposed to be doing things. Look at Mauna Kea. I have friends, like, shortly after I left, I'm talking, like, days after I left, Mauna Kea, the Mauna Kea situation got hot. And people that I know, my best friends, my partner, like the dude that I love most in that department, the dude that watched my back, had to go out there. And Hawaiians, like good Hawaiian dudes that love Hawaii, had to go Mauna Kea and remove protesters. Dude, and I talked to them. I've talked to officers that have been just torn apart, like cried when they got home. Right? And it's just such a tough spot to be in. They're arresting their kapuna for trying to protect Mauna Kea. That's something special to Hawaiian. Oh, it was just messed up. And then you saw like Hawaiians embracing each other in peace. The policeman with Uncle Kimo, who's up there. You know what I mean? And he's trying to do good. He wants what's best for Hawaii. And the officer's up there and doesn't want any trouble. Neither one of them really want to be there. They want it to be squashed. So I've seen that in Hawaii. And I feel like the world could learn from that. That protest broke my heart at a Hawaiian. I know. Yeah, man. I think like people in Hawaii have a great perspective. It's hard for me to I try to tell people who don't live in Hawaii, and it's hard for them to relate or understand or see how a community can come together. Don't get me wrong, Hawaii's got major problems. They get major problems. But the tribal mentality, the tribal culture that they survived on for so long, like to get together and work it out when they get a problems, to loan me the situation. What is it? Ho'oponopono. Like, man, that's a special thing to get together and have like a tribunal. Be like, yo, this is our problem. We got to take care of this within our communities. And it's no joke. You think it's any coincidence why I don't have to go to Papakolea every day? When I worked Sector 2, and Papakolea was a major part of that sector, is there any reason why I really never had to go to Papakolea? No. You know how many times I went up there and heard from people up there that somebody was breaking into houses and stealing stuff? I didn't hear from my dispatcher. My dispatcher didn't send me to a burglary in Papakolea. I got up there because there was some suspicious dude walking around. I would go patrol. There'd be some suspicious dude. And while I'm up there, someone comes through and is like, yo, he's been breaking in everybody's houses. And I'm like, really? So then Uncle so-and-so would come out and talk to me about the situation. I'm like, oh, Uncle, how come you never called police? He's like, oh, we're going to take care of it. Everybody knows what he's doing. If you didn't catch him, we was going to catch him. Like it's funny because it creeps up to vigilantism, but it's not if you're proactive. Right? Like, it's only vigilantism if you catch it late and punish somebody without having due process. They yelled at our college principal. Salinas 808. Who yelled at him? We can take care of him. Call his mom. Bro, I cannot tell you how many times I had somebody tell me they want me to take him to jail and not take him home. I had kids all the time to say, take me to jail. Take me to Kapolei. Because they didn't want to go home. Once I didn't take the kid home. Because I didn't think he was going to be safe. He did not want to go home. And I talked to the parent on the phone. And I'm like, yo, you need to calm down. Like, that kid was not safe. But for the most part, like, the people we have the most problems with are the people who didn't have parents that were involved. I can't tell you how many times I'd arrest a kid for getting nuts. And then when I drove him home, his parents had no idea he was even out of the house. So you're just watching TV, not paying attention. That's for real. And then the other thing in Hawaii is you have like extended families. So sometimes the dad isn't around anymore, but they live with grandparents or uncle or whatever who steps into that fatherhood role. And that's important. Like, I wonder what would happen in Hawaii if this was happening. You know what I mean? It's weird how similar this is to those days when people took over Iolani Palace. It's funny because Iolani Palace, like, is the only palace in the United States. It's the only royal palace in the United States. And, like, I remember seeing the photos of people in military fatigues that had kicked the, sheriffs out. So Mike Pence is getting on right now and saying that everything's under control and that Congress is doing what it's supposed to do. So it looks like everything's under control. Okay, not just me then. Oh, my audio is lagging? My bad. Oh, my bad. Let me see. Is the audio okay on YouTube? The ones the reporters talk to don't seem to be up to any good. So I'm good on YouTube. I guess it's just my Insta. Sorry. I don't know what to do with that. I got good signal. Hopefully it's good now. Selena says she can hear me. All right. I'm going to keep going. If it's bad enough, I'll end it and start over. All right, so, okay, audio's good on YouTube. Thank you, Le. Appreciate it. Okay, well, it says the pro-Trump mob has been cleared. So I left the Washington Post, if that's what you guys are watching. I think we're in the clear. Dude, if you guys have never been to Washington, D.C., I recently went to Washington, D.C. And the Capitol building, like, these places are tough to... It's tough to describe because, like, especially people in Hawaii, if you've never been there, it's so far away for you guys. Never been there, like, you see these photos of it on TV and online, and it looks like this huge things, you know what I mean? But when you're in D.C., you're walking on the street, it's right in front of you. It's right there. It's not like this sprawling, far away thing. So it's crazy to see. Like, you can walk right up to it. And I know they made a big deal about the people breaking through the barriers, but it's like the barriers are like those metal, the barricades. Everybody went to Honolulu City Lights. It's the same barricades that keep you, or if you go Waikiki for St. Patty's Day or Halloween or New Year's or whatever, it's the same barricades that keep you from getting in the street. It's nothing that big. They could just walk right up in there. And to be honest with you, it's kind of freaky to think about. You could just walk up in the Capitol and sit at Nancy Pelosi's desk as long as the dude doesn't try to stop you. Like, I think that's what happened. Selena, 808, no worries. I get you guys back. And they appreciate it for sure. They appreciate it for sure. So I think we're in the clear now, guys. I think that it's worth talking about. Here's the whole thing that I wanted to talk about was we got to avoid hypocrisy. Don't be a hypocrite. I was against the BLM riots. And the BLM riot to me was no more of a revolution than this was. Now, does that mean that there weren't people that were there that wanted to do good? No, of course there was. So just don't be critical of the BLM stuff and not be critical of this. Or don't have supported what the BLM riots were and then be critical of this one. You can't have it both ways. You just can't. Violence is violence. And then from the perspective of how should the police officers handle it, the same way. The police officers for the BLM riots should handle things the same way for this. If it reaches that same threshold, right? So I've seen a lot of people saying, why weren't people shot here? Right? Well, that's unfair too. Because you can't say, why weren't people shot here, if you don't know if the same things were done during Minneapolis or Chicago, right? There's a big difference between trying to storm the Capitol building and pointing a gun at somebody, or trying to storm the Capitol building and throwing a stone at somebody or a brick. That's a different story, bro. Police officers should not be shooting people who don't have weapons. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're talking about BLM. I don't care if you're talking about this one. Police officers don't shoot people, and they're trained not to. Police officers make mistakes, or there may be some bad police officers. But we're talking police officers as a whole, in generality. Their training is that you don't shoot people who are not a threat, a lethal threat. We're talking deadly use of force. Now, police officers can one-up the use of force. Heather Britt said, at least they didn't catch building on fire like BLM. First of all, yeah, thank God there were no fires, right? And if someone was setting a fire, is that lethal? Is that a lethal threat? Yes. If there were people in the building or people around. Because you can't just shoot somebody for starting a fire. Believe it or not, that's not enough to shoot somebody. They were shooting pepper balls and rubber bullets. They were just overwhelmed. Yeah, so that's the other thing. Less than lethal force is a completely different topic. There are riot control measures. So shooting pepper balls and rubber bullets is real. If you remember that one boy got killed, I don't know where was it, Minneapolis? There was that one young boy that got killed. I think it was like 16 or 18 or whatever. And he died because he took a lethal shot. Or no, maybe he didn't die. Maybe he just was wounded. He was like shot in the head and lost an eye or something. That happens. And that's sad. I mean, it really is sad. So protests that look like they may get out of hand, like if the cops are going to lose control and they think it's imminent, I can see shooting rubber bullets and pepper balls and using tear gas. Like, that's riot control measures. Riot control measures, I'm good with. And they use them here, it looks like, and they use them at the BLM rallies. So this is like real. I mean, these are actual things that we've seen, but we don't know. We don't know what the circumstances were. But I tell you this, if somebody picked up a rock and they were going to throw it at a policeman who was unprotected, right? Like, let's say he's just a dude that was driving through, going to work, or not a policeman. Let's say just an average citizen. And another dude was going to throw a brick at his head, the cop can shoot him. And should, if he thinks he was going to hurt that dude and kill him. Like, that's the cop's job. So I do see a lot of my left-leaning friends complaining that there wasn't more people shot and calling on white privilege. Which, I hear your argument. I hear you. But it's not fair right now. As convenient as it seems to the conservative perspective, it's not fair to say. Because if someone's throwing a brick, That's a different story than someone that's running into a building, especially the Capitol building. Because then there's this real fine line between that's a public building, right? So, like, what do you do? Live Pono 808, what's up? What's up, Lady K? RJ Calcac, what's up? So, MR said, White House call off the police ahead of this protest. There were Antifa there. Trump did not want extra police like that at like other protests. I kind of lost you on that one, MR. But Heather Britt, you said that there were Antifa there. I know there's Antifa there. There was Antifa both at the BLM rallies and at this one. I'm willing to bet that you can count on a good number of them were inciting violence and destruction. That's kind of the nature of Antifa. They're cool with that. So if you're going to say that there's Antifa members here at the Trump protest, you have to admit that there was as much of a likelihood that there was Antifa at the BLM protest doing some violence, right? It's probably equal chunk. And then how do you, like, what do you even say about it if you have, like, how do you even rationalize, what's the best way to calculate the percentage of people that people are just looking to make trouble? That's hard to do. Other protests had more police. Probably. I do think, though, we're on day one. What's up, Chemo? Thanks for coming through, bro. Glad you made it. I do think, what, Chemo, I think you're from Vegas, right? Living in Vegas right now. Here's the thing. This is the first protest about the election, the electoral college, all the whatever. Like, yeah, there was like rallies before to show like support, but there was never destruction or shooting, whatever. But now that this has happened, the next one, let's say they do this again tomorrow, there will be more police there. So I know people are saying like there was less police at this one, and you're right. There was less police at this one. But if you go back and you look at the first BLM protest, there wasn't as many police there either. It took a while to gain that momentum before they were like, yo, we better send some more people out. If this keeps happening, it's going to go that way. But I do hear people saying like Heather Britt, but the Trump protesters were helping the police more than destroying everything. I wasn't there. I don't know. But I will say, like, I don't get an overwhelming sense of destruction happening here. But I also don't know. You got to destroy something to get in, right? Like, I saw a couple photos where the windows were busted out because they were in there. Which, dude, just seems so counterintuitive. But I definitely saw that. I just don't know if that's what happened. It's hard to get that from photos. It really is. Dang, people were dressed up like Vikings, pioneers, and soldiers in camo. Faces painted with American flags, and others carried elaborate signs. Dude, I see Captain America. Yo, Batman showed up. A dude dressed like Batman showed up. What a trip. What a trip. Wow, what a trip, man. So rest in peace to that girl. I don't know her name. I don't know if they I don't have a name of that girl, but rest in peace to that chick. I don't know what she was doing. Is it weird that is it weird? I'm just being honest. I'm trying to be transparent. But like when someone dies, you really would hate, anyone dying is horrible. But you really you're like hoping that it wasn't like some innocent person who was just there. like that got it, didn't know what they were doing. You know what I mean? It's a weird thing to say, and it's not like you're not going to see this. People aren't going to talk about that a lot, but isn't it? What is that thing inside you that's like? I hope that was a person that was justified. And that's a twisted kind of feeling because you don't want anyone to die, you know. But from my perspective of being on patrol, bro, it's always the innocent people that get it. Like there's a thing in police work. They tell you right away when you're in academy, like, you don't got it. There's no luck for you as a cop. If you get in a shootout, you're probably going to die. Like, you'll hear stories. Like, you know how policemen, they wear a vest? The vest covers the front, and there's a little bit that kind of rolls around the side to protect you. But there's open spots, like, under your armpits, and there's open spots right here where the vest doesn't protect. You know what I mean? Because it's just, the vest is really only from, like, here down. And it only goes to, like, your belly button, right? Bro, you take a bullet to your pelvis or, like, under your belly button, you're done. Especially if it goes right through. So they tell you all the time, like, if you're going to get in a shootout, that's where it's going to hit you. It ain't even going to hit your vest. But then the bad guy that you shot 11 rounds at, he's not going to get hit. You know what I mean? And countless stories of dudes that got in shootouts. And the cop takes the suspect takes 17 bullets and lives. But then the cop took one round, it hits him in his bicep, ricochets off his bone, goes into his heart, kills him. Like, that's just the way things go. And I'm willing to bet that this chick was not doing, you know what I mean, was just like some chick that was there for a protest and like went in the building to see what was going on, was trying to get it on video or whatever. Like, that junk happens all the time, and it's sad. I just wish we didn't. I wish we didn't go there. I mean, it's just sad to see this, man. And then it's exciting at the same time. That's just a messed up thing in my head because you're like, I don't want this. I don't want people to die. You know, and I want the country to move on and heal. But it's like, you're also like, man, what am I seeing? I'm alive at a crazy time where I get to see crazy stuff like this. Is that just like a twisted thing from me being desensitized for all those years as a policeman? Like, I'm grateful for my time as an officer. I saw crazy stuff that broke my heart and I never want to see again. But like, it was an honor to have been there and witnessed it. It's like another experience you add to the Rolodex that helps shape who you are. So it adds to perspective. But like, you don't want to see anybody jump off a building. But in Waikiki, it happens all the time. Somebody just did it. Somebody just jumped off a building, committed suicide. What was it, Christmas Day? Or the day after Christmas? Or do you guys remember that? Somebody jumped off a building in Waikiki, killed themselves. I think it was a soldier. And it's weird because, like, how sad is that? And it's gross, too, to go to a scene like that. And there's like brains and intestines and stuff all over the place, and like the ME's picking the pieces up and putting it in a garbage bag. And as a cop, you're like, it's heavy, but you got a job to do, right? So you're trying to keep people away, you're trying to secure the scene, but it's also very somber, right? But at the same time, you're like, it adds to your character to have gone through that. It's just insane. It's a mind trip. It's a mind trip. That's why I think officers should have better psychological support, like mandatory, to help kind of deal with stuff. I only know that because I am now a civilian. And having been a civilian now for 3 years, not quite 3 years, 2.5 years I've been a civilian. I'm seeing these things that are inside of me, and I thought didn't have an effect on me the way that now I see that they do. It's like the desensitization, if that's a word, of how I experience and see things. That's what trips you out, is you just don't know until you're done and you don't have it anymore. Like, I know that I see things. So I'll tell you the story. So just this week, I build homes, and I'm at a project, and I have a contractor come over that was supposed to do some work. Well, I'd seen that contractor for a few weeks, coming and going every day. And I got this weird feeling. And it was a familiar feeling that you get as policemen get all the time. They can read dudes. And I was reading him, but I kept thinking there's no way, like, that's just the cop in me being negative. But I had a feeling that this dude was a crumb. And that crumb is the term that police in Hawaii use for criminal. And I was like, this dude's a crumb. But he had like tattoos all over the place and whatever. And so what you try to do is you try to shake it off. You're like, maybe that's just me. Because I know he had prison tattoos. Like, I know what a prison tattoo looks like. So he had a prison tat. And I'm like, maybe that's me reading into it. Because I know he'd been in prison because of his prison tats. And maybe I'm reading into it too much. And my partner, the dude that I'm in business with, he didn't get that same vibe when I told him, like, yo, I don't trust this dude. And he was like, I think that's just you, because I'm okay with it. I'm like, okay. So I give him the credit. I'm like, okay, you're a normal dude. You've never been a policeman, so your brain isn't tripped. So I just went with it. Well, then just the other day, I hadn't seen him in a couple weeks. He shows up, and I'm telling you, if there's one thing I know what someone who smokes crystal meth smells like. I know what an ice head smells like. There is a very distinct smell. Anybody who has family members who smoke ice and all the time, like a chronic, you know what I'm talking about. And this dude walked in and I smelt it. And I was like, man, am I doing this again? Is that something in me again? And so I called one of my other contractors that I'm close with over. I said, bro, you smell something? He's like, dude, what is that smell? And I was like, that's all I needed to hear. I didn't need to tell him what the deal was. But in my head, I'm like, yo, he knew something smelled. And it wasn't just BO. There's a special smell. Crystal meth has a special smell. And it was so blatantly obvious to me because I've smelt it hundreds of times. And I did happen to check this out, on this crazy topic. I walked by this dude's car, this contractor. He's a white dude. He's a bolo head, white dude, tats on his face. He even get 2 horns right here tattooed. And I walked by his car, and he had who told me that? What did it say? White power? Something like that. So after I gave him the benefit of the doubt, later find out he's a white supremacist. And a few days later, I caught him talking to himself. Not normal talking to yourself. Not like schizophrenic talking to yourself. I'm talking crystal meth, Batu chronic talking to yourself. And he went off on some crazy thing. I asked him a question. I was like, did you shut the water off? He was like, yeah, and the water shot up through the ceiling and it killed baby Jesus. Baby Jesus turned into a grandma. And then grandma came down and it was really sad. It killed all the kids. And then I was trying to scoop it up with a shovel. Talking crazy like that. And I was like, what? He was tweaking. And then it all comes back like boom, 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 boom. All those things that I knew that I got the read on, I got the vibe on, that I'm trying not to trust as much anymore because I want to be a normal dude. It all comes back and I was right on. All of a sudden I got like 5 points of indicia that indicate to me that point towards this dude's a crystal meth. He smoked crystal meth. And I think he was living out of his car. So I don't know, maybe he just had a long weekend and he smoked crystal meth, because you'll do that for like 36 hours, right? MR says, sensitive in the intuitive way. That's good if you are aware. Yo, being aware is wonderful. And being sensitive is good. It's just that sometimes you doubt it. Sometimes you're like, am I being too much? Like, as a father and a husband, I use that stuff I learned as a policeman. You know how many times I've cleared my house with my gun drawn? Because I come home and the door's open. Somebody forgot to leave the door open or whatever, or shut the door. Hey, no joke, that's real. I've cleared my house. I woke up middle of the night, cleared my house in my underwear, with my gun out. But then there's other things, like I don't keep one in the chamber anymore, which I know my Second Amendment guys are gonna freak out on me. My LEOs, my POs are gonna freak out on me. But I don't keep a round in the chamber anymore. But I train that way. I can draw my gun and rack the magazine. I can rack the slide super fast. So because I have children, right? Like, I have young babies who are trained really well around firearms. So I don't have any worries about them. But just to be safe, because I'm a dad, right? Like, there's little things that I was at LEO, I was a law enforcement officer. I did things a certain way. And then I'm trying to, like, come down to a more manageable level. Mostly so I can live longer and I don't drive my family crazy. So when I get vibes, when I'm out on the street with my family and I get a vibe, I try not to, like, express it. But that's something that cops do typically anyway. Like, you know how many times I've been on the street and I run into some dude I arrested who's no good, he's up to no good? I don't want to alarm my family. I don't want to alarm my children or my wife, but I'm watching this dude. And my gun starts getting hot on your skin. Like, your body becomes aware that it's there now. Right? And the fact that that had happened hundreds of times as a police officer, like, you get used to those feelings. So now your heartbeat doesn't even go up anymore. Like, you're more tempered. So you like to keep that sensitivity, but at the same time, like, you have to learn how to deal with it and make it more manageable. Because there's, like, stuff going on physiologically. And your pituitary gland and all these things are active. And you have cortisol and all these things that, like, shorten your life as a policeman. Policemen die, like, 2 years after retirement on average. No joke. Go look it up. In Honolulu, I forget what it is. It's something crazy. Like, the average officer dies, like, within 2 years of retirement. That has less to do with the fact that they just die because they don't have a job. I mean, that's not what's really happening. So much as they retired. They waited too long to retire. That's typically what's happening. So that goes to show you, like, what they go through physiologically after you retire, from going to all these hot calls all day, boom, 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 chasing burglars and robbery suspects and assault suspects and murder suspects. And then all of a sudden you're not a cop anymore, and you're like an alien. You feel like you're an alien in a foreign world. Straight up. I don't know how else to put it. So I'm coming from this weird perspective now where I'm watching things, like, I report to you guys from an ex-cop's perspective, which is different than a cop's perspective. Because until I wasn't a cop and saw the tweaks that I had to make, I would never have known. Because when you're a cop, your reality is all you know. It's hard for a civilian to understand why cops are so attentive. Some people would say sensitive or touchy. Like, why you're always on pins and needles. Because you never saw somebody stab a baby. You never had a gun pointed at you. So it's so weird, dude. Deep breathing, prayers, meditations, MR. Yeah, I tell you what, like, if you guys haven't read it, there's a book called On Combat, which I know there's some people who are critical of the book. They say that the person who wrote the book is encouraging militarism of police. But it worked wonders for me. Because I read it for the psychological perspective of like what your body, what happens to your body. And so it's called On Combat. ONCOMBAT. 2 words, On Combat. Selena says it's a daddy thing. I know. Yeah, man, there's some things I'm never going to lose and I'm grateful for. But, you know, I got babies, so I got to protect them. But it's like, there's still, like, I'm losing my edge. I'm trying not to admit it. But I'm losing my edge. So 2021, I'm committing to more training. Like 2021, I'm really going to step up jiu-jitsu. I'm really going to step up my firearms training. Because I think that if you have a gun, you should train with it. Selena said, my daddy still be that way. Daddy's a policeman. So I'm gonna commit to more training, and I'm gonna try not to lose the pros of being a policeman, the things that you learn. It's like a lifetime of education. Anybody who's been through police academy knows that there are things you'll never unlearn. I'm 62 and it's taken me over 50 years to finally give myself over to these tools. Walking, running, playing basketball are tools too. Yes. Yeah, dude. Oh, he's not a cop, Selena. Yeah, daddies, you're right. They're still that way. They'll always be my babies. I'll always be like a daddy and protect them. You gotta love dads for that, bro. You gotta love dads for that. Dang, some of these photos online are crazy. There's this one photo of a dude who's like drawing down his pistol through a broken window, and there's just a dude's face. See, like, to the public, that's a crazy situation to see. But as a policeman, do you know how many times you pointed your weapon at somebody? Especially in a big city like Honolulu. That's not even a thing. So it's weird, like the swings of the perspective of, say, the public who've never been in this situation, or a police officer, right? The swings are so big. If I try to look at it from an objective perspective, like, man, that's a crazy thing to see a dude's pistol pointed at another guy's face from 3 feet away. 2 officers. But I've done it, you know? I pointed my gun at people from 3 feet away. And I've never pointed my gun at somebody if it wasn't warranted. Man, it's a trip. It's such a big chasm. It's such a big gap to fill. It's such a big space between the public perception and an officer's perception. It's not even manageable, it seems. Like if somewhere in the middle is like picture 0 and it goes 10 to 10. I swear the officer's perspective is at like an 8 to 10, and the public's is negative 8 to 10 or positive 8 to 10, and negative, however you want to look at it. It's for real. It's just so, there's such a chasm. And so, literally, outside of my channel, which is supposed to be a vlog, podcast about my life for my kids in the future, the public aspect, the reactions that I get from people that subscribe or follow, I really want to bring the public closer to where the cop's coming from, right? Because I'm not in the middle. I was a cop. You never go back. Like, if you were a civilian and then you were a cop, let's say you were a civilian till you were 20 and then you were a cop till you were 40, right? So half your life a civilian, half your life a cop. If you quit being a police officer, you don't go back to the middle. Once you come over here, it's so hard to get back because you see things you can never unsee. This dude in Kalihi was, and this is getting graphic, so if you don't want to hear graphic stuff, like if you don't want to talk about or hear about stories involving sexual assault and pedophilia, if that's too touchy for you, it triggers you, whatever, you might want to click off. But there was a dude in Kalihi who was raping his son, his real son, for years and recording it. Had hidden cameras throughout the house and was recording it. And it was so, the kid was so messed up that he just let his dad do it. And then when he became an adult, like after the age of 18, he's 18, 19, 20 years old, his dad's still doing it. But then it's not even like what you would think of rape. The kid was going along with it because he had been grown up thinking this was normal. And the dad was recording it. Oh, it's making me sick to my stomach to think about. By the time HPD found out what he was doing and found the hidden video, because I think a sister or an auntie or whatever found the hole in the wall where the camera was, HPD took the camera and looked through the events or looked through the footage. The boy was already over 18. But then the son didn't want to prosecute his own dad. The dad ruined his life, took away his innocence. The kid will never be right. He will never be right. And he's probably going to molest or rape somebody in his life because the stats show that. And once you see that, that happens in the world, you can never go back. You can never unlearn that. You see the darkest side. So, Selena said the state can still prosecute him, except for they don't have footage. So they don't have footage of the rapes when he was a kid. They only had footage of the sex after he was 18. So the state needs a complainant. Ulrich and Allison said, I see the aftermath being a nurse. You see it too. You see how that works. Nurses, like, they were our counterparts as policemen. When we would bring people to Queens or Straub, victims, like, they kind of pick up where we leave off, right? We are there on scene, and then we bring the victim to the hospital because we need statements and we need to get this investigation going. But the nurses have to take on from there. So, like, you guys are our counterparts. A lot of times you get to hear, because you're less imposing, you're more friendly, you're more welcoming. You're not as scary, you're not wearing a badge, you don't have a gun on your hip. So people want to talk to you more. So a lot of times you hear the crazy stuff. And a lot of times you see victims that don't want to say what happened to them because they're embarrassed or they're shame. But you see, like, the cuts and the bruises, and you see the aftermath of the rapes and the domestic violence. Especially being in the ER. My wife was an ER nurse for 10 years. And the stuff she saw was insane. And you're right, Salinas. The trauma is nuts. Like, those people need therapy. You need therapy. You got to process this, or you're going to carry those things on, those biases, those scars, those traumas with you into the future. Well, the nurses and the policemen, they share the trauma. So the best way to think about it is if someone got raped, or let's say someone was kidnapped and raped, everyone's going to agree that person needs therapy to process that, right? Well, guess what? You got nurses that discovered it, or a policeman that walked in on when it was happening. That nurse and that police officer share that trauma with that victim. Emma, much love to you too. Thanks for coming through. The trauma stays with you. There are days I cry driving home from work because it stays with you. Yeah. Yeah. I remember crying. My wife knew when stuff was wrong. See, I didn't go home and tell my wife what happened at work. Because she can't be in her head. Yvette Swizzle, plenty mahalo. Thank you. Thanks for coming through, Yvette. I need my wife to be in the game with the kids. Like she was a nurse and she decided to be a stay-at-home mom when my second baby was born. We lived in Kalihi on Rose Street. She quit the hospital and decided to be a stay-at-home mom. And now she's been one for 8 years now. And I need her head in the game when she's with the kids, right? And so when I would come home from work, the last thing I want to do is tell my wife about what I just seen. You guys have heard the story before, that baby that was stabbed, that my daughter knew from church. Like, that may be one of the only things my wife had ever heard as far as a story, because she had to know, because the baby went to our church. My daughter knew him. He had been killed by his uncle, who was on crystal meth. And I'm pretty sure he lived Kino. Was it 888? I forget the address in Kino. Kapoy Kai Lions. My mom was ER nurse at Queens, and I could tell when she had a rough night. Yeah. Yo, if you got nurse family members, it's hard for them to express to you what happened. But, bro, it's so taxing on the mental, because you have people that don't have any hope. Like, they don't even know that this is not supposed to be happening to them. They're full-on victims. The mental's all tweaked. Their brain is broken. So they don't even want to tell you what happened. They're being raped or beaten or molested or whatever. They don't even want to tell you. How messed up is that? A lot of people go, how come you didn't tell somebody? You have no idea, like, what they go through. If they've been doing this for years, they've learned how to cope with their life, this thing that happens to them every day by this loved one or whatever. Yo, it's so messed up. How many times women who are getting beaten by their husbands don't want the husbands to go to jail? The majority of the time. An overwhelming majority we never hear about. I saw a dude beat his woman with a tire iron. Like, you see that on movies. Her head was all busted up. As on Chuki's woman, forget her name, busted up in the head, and her husband, who had hit her in the head with the tire iron, on Ward. At Alamoana and Ward, the bottom of Ward in Alamoana. And I roll up on the scene. There was a call of people fighting. I roll up and I see these people fighting in the street, and then there's a chick holding her head, and seen a dude holding a tire iron, and he dropped the tire iron when I got there, and it had blood on it, and she was busted in her head, and she didn't want him to get in trouble. It's like, yo, how much has he been doing this that you don't want to get him in trouble? And then they got babies together or whatever, right? What, do you want to be alone? Like, in their head they're thinking, that's all I got is this person. Think about that kind of trauma. Man, I don't know how we got off on that tangent. Somebody must have asked it. My bad. Somebody must have asked a question. I took it too far. Okay. Bro, even to this day, you could tell some of the stuff she's seeing is still messing with her head. Yeah, man. Like, you can't unsee it. You know, like, you tuck it away. And to me, it feels like it's more therapeutic to talk about it. so that it doesn't become this throbbing thought. Because if you talk about it, it like scratches the itch and kind of deals with it a little bit, normalizes it. And then a year later, it comes back up. So talk about it. Don't repress it. Don't fight it, you know? But it's weird. When you do it every day, you don't even have... Like, you don't even have a... You've seen it so much that there are events that don't stand out. I can't tell you how many times I talk to my partner. My partner called me on the phone, or we'll reminisce about something that happened. He's like, yo, you remember that one time where that dude swung the bat at you? And I'm like, that wasn't me. He's like, bro, the dude swung the bat at your head and just barely missed you or whatever. And I'm like, I can't remember whatever. And he'll say the dude's name, and then boom, 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 boom. Like the info loads, like it was buffering. And all of a sudden you're like, dude, you're right. How come I didn't remember that? It's because the very next day, some dude tried to jump off his building. And one of my beat partners had to jump and catch him. Save him from jumping over. So like, that was only 7 years, a little under 7 years I was a policeman. Imagine these dudes 25 years in the police department. They can barely remember what happened in August. So nurses, same way. So one day, literally your mom as a nurse might have forgotten about a certain incident that she saw, but then some little girl walks by when you're at the store and looks like, and she doesn't know, but all of a sudden it like triggers a memory, like, oh, that looks like this one girl I met, and then boom, 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 boom. All that info loads, and it's like, oh, she's the girl being abused by her dad, or she was the girl that was abandoned on a doorstep and, you know, abused throughout the foster system or whatever. That junk is real. Selena said free spa day for nurses, straight up. And then think about with COVID. Like, I know that's a touchy topic for everybody, but I'm saying, like, I know nurses who are dealing with COVID in Hawaii and in Michigan. I know nurses that are saying, like, yo, the hospitals are overrun where I'm at, and they were really scared and nervous and, like, tripping out about COVID. Then I know other nurses that work in hospitals like, yo, we haven't seen a single COVID case. So I'm saying from both sides of the perspective, like, man, these dudes gotta go into work and watch somebody get COVID, not die, nothing happen, and someone else die of COVID or some other whatever it was, comorbidity. It's like, man, whenever you're in a profession that deals with death, that's heavy. Because isn't that the thing everybody's afraid of? Like, I think death is the one thing we all like have in common, right? We're all going to die. And everybody's basically afraid of death. Right? If you ask like 100 people what they're afraid of the most, it's going to be death. So when you're dealing with death all the time, think about what that does to your brain. Most people don't have to think about death, and when they do, they get sad. Policemen can't deny it. You can't like put it off. You can't suppress it. You gotta deal with it. And you don't have time to like spend extra time on it, because the next death comes in. In Honolulu, someone dies every single day from a murder. You know what I mean? Or some kind of tragedy. Probably not murder. Murder is a classification of a crime. I should clarify that. But every day someone dies from a tragedy in Hawaii. And then every day someone fights a police officer in Honolulu. That's probably a legit. If I was a betting man, I would say that people. I would definitely say that. Every day in Honolulu, just the island of Oahu, somebody fights a policeman. Think about that. It's crazy to go to work and want to get, and like have it get in a fight. Nurses get it too. Dude, I can't tell you how many times I was in the hospital and the dude's getting nuts and he gets nuts with the nurse. And if the policeman wasn't standing there or the dude wasn't handcuffed, you can only imagine what would have happened. Teachers too. G Major 7 said, teachers have similar experiences of trauma. I worked in special education before, and there were times I drove home quiet with no radio on. I feel you. I know those drives where I don't remember leaving work. I just knew I was at the house, and I'd been sitting in the driveway for 20 minutes. Like you zoned out, like trying to process what happened, you know? And I will say this, though. Policemen, the one thing that they have is report writing. And this sounds, it's like a 2-for-1. It's like an unintended bonus that policemen have, like a benefit. And after an event happens, a policeman has to write a report on it. And if you think about it, it's like journaling. It's like writing a journal. I journaled for years. Now that there's the internet and YouTube, like I get a chance to say how I feel for my kid. I would journal for my kids, basically. Because I had my dad's journals. When my dad died, I was 21 years old. My dad died at the age of 39. Which, interesting fact, in 2 months, I will be older than my dad lived. So in 2 months, I will have outlived my father, which is freaky. And cops get a chance to write their reports, which is like this therapeutic thing. No one thinks about it like that. It just came to my head just now as we were talking. But you have to process everything. Sure, it's like broken down and compartmentalized. You have to write it. There's like headings. Like your assignment and your arrival time, your scene and time element, your observations, and all the person's information, what you saw, what happened, the utterances. And when you're all done writing it out, like you've processed, you went through the whole situation and decompressed. So that I will say, like, that's a bonus that cops don't think about. I never thought about it until just now. But after you process it, like, it makes sense in your head. So when you tuck it away, when you put it in that little filing cabinet in your head, it's kind of dealt with, like it's established, you know? Where the victim doesn't get to do that a lot of times. A victim of a crime just, it happens to them, and then that's it. They don't have to process it, and that's what therapy is for. But for a policeman, like, at least there's this process. They got to break it down, and they got to talk about what happened and why. And then it all fits tighter in the head, so they can fit more in there. I know that's a crazy analogy, but it feels like it's like it compresses the file. You know what I mean? Bro, that happens all the time. I got slammed up against the wall from a huge dude all high on meth. Yeah, bro. Oof. It happens. It definitely happens. I was told by an older nurse, leave your emotions at the door, never bring it to work. Hard to do, though, yeah? Ulrich. Or Allison. I don't know who I'm talking to. But it's definitely hard to do, to not bring your emotions in. But I've had it before where my B partner or whatever was like, yo, let me handle this. Like, you're too hot right now. And there's been times where I'm like, bro, you got to talk to this person. I can't do this right now. Because you're going in 5 days a week. You can't not go to work, right? So you get put in this position. So you're on patrol, you're on the beat, you're on your assignment, and stuff pops off. You can't just decide not to be there. Literally, your job is just to be there. You can't opt out. Yeah. Well, I don't know how we got off on all that. But Monica, peace, bro. Stay safe. I appreciate you, Monica. Let me see. I'm going to get to him because I'm going to log off soon. We're about to hit the 2-hour mark. So I'm going to log off and just make sure I get to these comments. I can't understand why our government kept this crazy fool on. He never should have been president in the first place. Well, even the way you said that, though, Mary, I can't understand why our government kept this crazy fool on. Like, it's not the government that keeps the president on. You know what I mean? He gets elected. But you're right. I mean, I don't know what to believe in politics anymore. You got to be an actor to be a politician nowadays. Because you got to get support. You got to owe people. That trips me out. That's what hurts America the most, I think, is people can't trust the politicians. I've seen that exact thing happen when we were out, especially with chronics and homeless people. Yeah. Kapoi Kai Lions. We're concerned about our incarcerated boys over on Oahu with COVID-19. Yeah, I remember there was a lot of concern for that. I remember there was this crazy idea of letting them out, though. That's also not a solution. Teachers have... Oh, I already got to that. After all the reports that are mandatory for educators to fill out child abuse, it's draining. Oh, I bet, Yvette. Yeah, you guys work with children. That's the toughest part. I think dealing with the kids, that's the worst part. Oh, Allison said, especially with kids when you're a parent. Yeah. Man, I remember coming home and just holding my kids and crying. I remember we would have our police psychologist during annual recall training. He'd give us one class about trauma for children. And I got really convicted about how I talk to my kids. So there is some good stuff that cops get as far as training. I would text my wife, we got to make this change, or I got to stop doing this, and letting out the nonviolent offenders early. Letting the nonviolent offenders early. Here's the thing. I did notice that they had talked about letting out nonviolent offenders, but they were letting out people that were in jail because of nonviolent offenses. But there are plenty of violent people who have committed violent crimes who are just not currently doing a bid for a violent crime. So that's tricky too. Right? That's tricky too. And the cops are already frustrated enough. Dude, if I had $1 for every time I ran a rap warrant check and it came back 100 prior arrests for attempted murder, burglary, robbery, assault, kidnapping, and I'm not exaggerating. It isn't. You would not be shocked if you ran a dude and he had 100 prior arrests. And that frustrates policemen when they're trying to do their job. I'm like, yo, I arrested you 4 times already and you're back out committing crime. Wasting my time. The letting out nonviolent, I've done that many times, bro. My son would be like, Dad, why are you crying? Yeah. Yeah, let COVID run out free. No can. Yeah. That's the other thing, man. What do you do? And Salinas, you have this other perspective too, because I notice from a mainland perspective, Hawaii is really sensitive right now when it comes to COVID. And I noticed that Hawaii is a few weeks behind the mainland as far as trends. And Hawaii got to COVID got to Hawaii late. So people had already in the mainland processed that whole thing with COVID. COVID came, everyone freaked out, everything shut down. But then they were already in fatigue mode from shutdown fatigue by the time Hawaii really kicked into full gear. So it was weird to see the wave where it hit us and then it hit Hawaii. From where I live, there's a lot of people who only half the people wear a mask when you go to Meijer. And it's not because people are dumb. Because I'm sure everybody who wears masks thinks that people who don't wear masks is dumb. And everybody who doesn't wear masks thinks people who do wear masks are just sheep. But dude, everybody's out here trying to do their thing. Everybody's just trying to live their life. They're trying to do what they think is right. I never wore a mask for political intentions. And I never didn't wear a mask for political intentions. If I was going to a store and they wanted me to wear a mask, I put on a mask. For the first 6 weeks, when we thought the world was going to die, I wore my mask and I never went out of the house. But when I did, I wore my mask. And then everyone I know got COVID. And everybody was fine. My mom, cousins, aunts. We think we had it, but we never got tested. We just quarantined out of consideration for other people. So it's weird to see, like, I'm in the Midwest, right, and I watch like a Midwest social media, but then I also, because my phone, because I registered my social media accounts when I was in Hawaii, so I still get like Hawaii news and Hawaii updates. You know how you have like the updates on your phone, notifications and alerts. So I still get Hawaii stuff. So I get Hawaii and Midwest. It's so weird to see the trend because things are so different. What's up, Brian? Yo, sorry, your TikTok got shut down, bro. Oh, dang. I'm glad they're okay, Brian. Kapoi Kai Lions. Aloha. Thank you, Kapoi. Thanks for coming through. All right, well, I'm at 2 hours and 1 minute. So I'm gonna let you guys go. I don't want to keep you. It's 9:07 here. I gotta put my babies to sleep and try to be a good dad. You know what I mean? I got 3 kids I gotta try to tuck in. Tonight I think I gotta put my daughter to sleep. I gotta read a story and stuff. So I'm gonna get to it, but I'm glad everything's over. Rest in peace to the people who died. Let's all try to get along. Let's all try to love each other through this process. Let's not hate on everybody who has different beliefs. Man, I know that's such a boring topic. It's such a boring opinion to hear. I know people on both sides roll their eyes, but gosh, it drives me nuts. I just want my friends back, you feel me? I just want everybody to stop acting like they know. None of us know. Tell me you can trust these people. You can't trust none of these people. All right, good night, homie. Love you, Salinas. Thank you. Aloha. Good night, Brian. Mahalo le. She said mahalo nui. E malama pono kako. Ke aloha mau. Aloha, my friends. Mahalo plenty. All right, guys. I'll post a video next week, hopefully. Maybe we'll go live again. Hopefully nothing crazy happens. Aloha, guys. Shoots, I'll talk to you later.